The first thing I want to say is my name is Steve Youngblood. I'm 24 years old, and that worship service was awesome. Yeah. Glory to God. His presence was in this place strong. And it took me back to when I was a kid. Because unlike some of the people that I'm in Teen Challenge with, I got to grow up in a church that was on fire for God. I seen your youth group kids walking around up here. I seen you pacing, people just going for it. And I was like, man, this reminds me of when I was growing up and the move of God that was taking place and the revival that I was a part of. And I grew up in that, man. I had countless prophecies over my life about, you were gonna be one of these people that's a world changer. You're gonna be one of these people that serves God with everything you have. And not only was I a part of this, my dad was the pastor of the church that this was taking place in. And I grew up kind of like on a pedestal, I felt like. About till the time that I was 12 or 13 was when I kind of started to rebel. But before that, just give you some background about the church, it was big. We had a pretty large church. We owned our own hotel. We had our own K through 12 school. We had our own Bible college. On the summers, we had a ministry for the college kids that would travel the United States on tour buses. And we would just do ministries like we do with a choir, and it was called City of Praise. And so I spent a lot of time on the road. I went through a lot of different states and did a lot of different things. But the main thing was I was always surrounded by the presence of God everywhere that I went. Real tangible presence of God. By the time I was 12 or 13, I hit this rebellious stage, and I decided to walk away from God. Yeah, there were some certain things that happened. There were church splits, and there was stuff that went on in the church, but I can't blame anything on any of that. I chose to walk away from what I knew was right. And I was looking to left the Bible down here, but Romans 1 talks about what happens when you know God and you choose to walk away from Him. It says, yes, they knew God, but they wouldn't worship Him as God or even give Him thanks. And they began to think up foolish ideas of what God was like. As a result, their minds became dark and confused. Claiming to be wise, they instead became utter fools. And instead of worshiping the glorious, ever-living God, they worshiped idols made to look like mere people and birds and animals and reptiles. So God abandoned them to whatever shameful things their hearts desired. As a result, they did vile and evil, degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worshipped and they served the things God created instead of the Creator Himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. Amen. God says, when you know me and you walk away from me, I'm going to give you over to a depraved mind. And that's what happened to me. I was depraved. I went from living in the presence of God and knowing God to, by the age of 16, was just rebellious and left my parents' house and moved in with a dope dealer. By the age of 18, 19 area, I was cooking meth every day. It was my entire life. That was all it was about, was methamphetamines. And I was going to do anything I had to do to get that. There was nothing that was going to stand in my way. I was sold out. Over a few years, there have been times that I tried to get clean and times that I just gave up and went back to it. There were some periods of sobriety, and during those times of sobriety, I did good things. Like, I got married for a while. I had a family for a while. I provided for them, but in the end, drugs always came back, and I sacrificed those things and went back to dope until I finally got busted and sat in jail for a little under a year, facing charges of manufacturing methamphetamines. I got convicted of that. And the judge decided to put me on probation for 5 years. Put me through 30-day programs, 60-day programs. I had to live in controlled environments. I had to go to supervision centers and do work release programs and all this stuff. But every time that I would go to a treatment center and every time that I would go to a supervision center, I'd be there for a little while. I'd do what I was supposed to do while I was there. I'd get out and I'd relapse. I'd go back to jail. I'd get out again. I'd go to this treatment center. I'd relapse. I'd go back to jail. The judge would say, we're going to give you one more chance. Let me go to another center. Go right back to jail. And this last time before I came to Teen Challenge, I was in jail, I was just broken. And I knew that I could not do anything I could not do anything to save myself. These programs they were sending me to weren't working because I knew that I wanted free from this. I did not want methamphetamines to control my life anymore. And through my entire life, I knew the real answer. I knew that God was the answer. I just didn't want to give him control. I didn't want to let him take over. And so I'm laying in my cell and I'm reading through Luke 14. Luke 14 talks about this banquet that a king is throwing. And he invites all these people, but all of them come up with excuses. And none of them go. And he says to his servant, he says, okay, I want you to go out to the highways and into the byways, and I want you to bring everybody in that there would be people at my banquet. And so he goes out and he does all this and he brings all these people in, and as I'm reading this, my heart's breaking. And I'm like, oh God, I have been those people that you had invited to your banquet. And I have come up with every excuse in the book and done everything else except following you. And then I said, I know that I don't deserve to be one of the people that you go and you pull off the streets. I don't deserve that. And my prayer in that moment was, God, make me the servant. Let me be the one that steps up and says, you know what, I'll be the one that pulls people off the streets. Let me come and let me serve you. I don't want anything from you, God. I've already wasted that. But let me come and let me serve you. It was kind of humorous because there's other people in my cell and I'm like in my bed screaming, God, let me be your servant, crying. They think I'm crazy. And so that happened, and I kept on reading, and I read all the way through chapter 15, and chapter 15 talks about the prodigal son. And it's like a Teen Challenge favorite. Everybody here's heard that verse, I don't know how many times. But prodigal son takes off, does exactly what I did. And he says, man, at the end of it all, he says, man, it would be better to be a servant in my father's house than where I'm at right now. And I read that and I broke again, but I broke differently. I knew something changed on the inside of me. I was like, God, I just did that. I just said I want to be your servant. Now I want you to run to me with the open arms that this daddy came to his son, I was like, I did that, and something changed on the inside of me. And I think that even though I was surrounded by the presence of God from a young age, I was never really saved until that moment. Because at that moment, my life was no longer about me, it was about serving God and helping others. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, well, something's different in me, but I'm still in jail. What are you doing, God? Like, am I about to go to prison? Because this is my last chance. I know I'm getting ready to go serve 12 years. And my lawyer shows up about 15 minutes later, and I go in and meet with him, and he's like, hey, the judge said you can go to Teen Challenge for 14 months, and he'll let you out, and they won't even file a violation or your probation for your relapse. Or you can stay here and go to prison for 12 years. So I was like, all right. I went, packed up my bags that night, left, got to spend a week with my family. During that week with my family, we had some tragedy happen. It was kind of a test for me. My grandmother passed away. But it was like God worked everything out because I got to go and be there with her as she passed away instead of sitting in a jail cell. And then like just the next couple days, I ended up going into Teen Challenge. So now I'm in Teen Challenge, and I'm all worried about my grandma, and I'm like, man, she knew I was in jail, she knew I was doing all this stuff, and when I got to see her, she was in a coma. She couldn't respond to me, but she knew I'd been in jail up until then, and I'm thinking, she thinks I'm still in jail, she's gonna get ready to go to prison. What was her feelings? And all my brothers came and surrounded me, and this is a testimony of what God can do, because they came and surrounded me. They prayed that I would get a peace about what my grandma felt about me and everything. And the next day, all these grandmas come, and they bake us all cookies at the center, right? And we go down there, and we're singing Christmas carols with them and stuff. And I wasn't even planning on telling you guys this. But they're baking cookies, we sing those Christmas carols with them, and as they're leaving, one of them walks up to me, and she says, son, I don't know you, but I'm supposed to tell you that I am so proud of the changes that you're making as a grandma. I want you to know that. And it was just a great moment. So today, that was at the home center. Today I'm in Cape Girardeau. I'm back on track. I am trying to serve God with everything I have. And I'm relying on Him for it. Just like Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this, that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. So I'm confident that what I can't do, he can't, or he can. And even though that it may seem hard for me sometimes, all I got to do is rely on him, and he'll carry me through. And those prophecies that I had when I was a little kid, they're going to come to pass. Because today I stand before you not as a drug addict, not as somebody who's bound up in addiction, not as somebody that's broken, but I stand before you chosen, predestined, adopted as a son in Christ. And I will fulfill the call that is on my life. Thank you guys for listening to me today.